Well, air raid sirens just sounded in Jerusalem. At least 3 explosions were heard by some counts. Well, over the past 24 hours, at least 6 air raid alerts have been issued across Israel. Let's speak to our correspondent now, Noga Tarnopolsky, standing by in Jerusalem. Hello to you, Noga. Another air raid siren. What more have you noticed about these ongoing Iranian strikes?
Well, there are a number of things to say. One is increasingly over the last few days, we've seen coordinated strikes. So missiles launched from Iran and separately missiles launched from Hezbollah um, in the intention of them landing in Israel at the same time. So a coordinated attack. I mention this among other things because this is a sign that the Iranian authorities are still very much in control, at least of these kinds of military planning. Um, we are also seeing a very, very different Iranian strategy than what we saw just months ago during the war in June. At that time, huge barrages were launched basically every night and many days at Israel, 80 missiles at a time or more. This time, we haven't seen that at all. Instead, Iran appears to have adopted a strategy of launching as few missiles as it can just to disrupt life in Israel completely. So it's not aiming necessarily to kill and destroy in Israel, but it is aiming to make daily life in Israel impossible and to keep people in and out of shelters constantly. So it's a constant drip. But each time we hear the air raid sirens and we look at the missiles aiming towards Israel, it's one missile, it's 3 missiles. The army says that 2 launches were cited. So it's a very different strategy. It may indicate, it may indicate that Iran is trying to hold onto ammunition for a longer conflict, or it could be anything. One of the theories here has been that they needed to keep ammunition fresh for all of the attacks against Gulf states.
Noga, 1 week ago, the United States and Israel began this war together. There's still questions over how it will end. On Friday, the White House said they will need 4 to 6 more weeks. Donald Trump says it will continue until Iran's unconditional surrender. Have Israeli officials reacted to either of these statements?
Israeli officials have not reacted in any overt or direct way to those 2 statements made yesterday. But in Israel, there is, in Jerusalem, satisfaction upon hearing those statements and even a sense of relief. There had been some concern over the previous days in Israel that the United States and Donald Trump in particular might be interested in talks with Iran, might be interested in a quick end to this war because of the lack of popularity in the United States. So there was some concern, and there's a clear understanding in Israel that the minute Donald Trump says this is over, for Israel also, it is over. So Israel is messaging, Israeli army officials are messaging that the war in Lebanon, where remember Israel's operating there alone without the United States and apparently with no American limits imposed on its actions, that the war in Lebanon may last longer even than the war in Iran. That's one of the things we've been hearing. But in terms of war goals, Israelis have also been rather vague. The only thing we've really heard here is initially a war aim and then sort of the hope of regime change being mentioned overtly. The foreign minister of Israel specifically said in several interviews that the aim is regime change. However, there are no plans presented to Israelis to achieve regime change. There are no steps forward to advance toward this. And it's one of the reasons I mentioned to you these coordinated attacks. It appears right now, from the Israeli point of view, that as hard as Iran has been hit, and Iranian leadership, obviously very hard, there's absolutely no signs of a collapse of the regime just yet. And similarly, no plans. I should also add something that is having a big impact in Israel. The prime minister, his ministers, the defense minister, none of them have yet addressed the public. There hasn't been a single press conference. There hasn't been interaction with the public. So there's a feeling of a little bit of concern about what may really be going on behind these lack of plans. And, there are occasional pre-taped videos that Netanyahu has posted, but nothing more than that.
All right, Noga. Thank you very much. Noga Tarnopolsky reporting from Jerusalem.